You want to be a boxer?
I think I'm too little.
5 years passed before I knew it.
In the late 1400s, Protestant Christians, escaping religious persecution in Europe, sought refuge in South Africa. These settlers, mostly from the Netherlands, Germany, and France, would become known as the Afrikaners, or the White Africans. Over the centuries, the British Empire relentlessly encroached on the lands of native Africans, leading to the creation of the apartheid system in 1948, intensifying racial tensions. However, 18 years before those defining moments, on a small farm in England, a boy named Peter Keith, or PK, was born. PK's life began in tragedy. His father, a strong man, had died in an elephant accident just weeks before PK's birth. His mother, devastated by the loss, named him after her late husband. She called him PK, determined to keep the memory of her beloved alive. As PK grew, his world was shaped by a mix of English lessons from his mother and African wisdom from his nanny. His closest companion, Tonderai, the son of his nanny, shared these lessons, and together they enjoyed a carefree childhood. But their happiness would not last. When the Bobena plague struck, it wiped out the farm's livestock, plunging PK's mother into despair. Overcome by grief and unable to manage the animals as her late husband had, her health rapidly declined. She could no longer care for PK, forcing him to be sent to an African boarding school. The only one they could afford was run by Afrikaners.
I love you, PK.
On his first day, PK entered a history class where the teacher detailed the fierce battles between the British and Afrikaners for control of the land. She spoke of the death camps where Afrikaners had suffered and the rise of the Afrikaner government, now focused on oppressing both the British and black Africans.
The English drove us into the wilderness because this land is ours.
In that moment, PK realized the weight of resentment in the room. He was the only British descendant student there, and the others stared at him with silent hostility, blaming him for the pain of their ancestors. Tension escalated further when Japi Botha, a senior student, spat on the ground in front of him.
Us from evil, for thine is the kingdom, the power.
The atmosphere grew heavy, thick with unspoken hatred and cruelty. It was a moment that would shape the rest of his life, a moment when one boy's will to fight back would rise above it all. The power of one. Several days later, at night, Botha and his friends trapped PK in the bathroom. They taunted him, calling him a lowly human, and degraded him further by urinating on him.
We've been saving this all day.
The other students watched with cold indifference, relishing in his humiliation. The constant bullying wore PK down, leaving him with crippling anxiety so severe that he began wetting the bed every night. Then, one night, a dormitory guard delivered crushing news. PK's mother had passed away. He was sent home to attend her funeral, where he reunited with his nanny and Tonderai. The guilt hit him hard. He regretted leaving his mother when she was sick, wondering if she might have lived if he had stayed by her side. But there was no time for regrets. His grandfather, the only family left, lived in Congo, and PK knew he had to return to the school. Before he left, PK spent time with his nanny, sharing the torment he had endured. The nanny, who had always treated him like her own son, called on Dabulamanzi, a healer from her tribe, to help PK face his fear. Dabulamanzi led him through a ritual where he came face to face with an elephant, representing his struggle with fear. When the elephant charged, PK stood firm. Unlike his father, he didn't flinch. The elephant stopped, touching him gently with its trunk, a sign that he had overcome his fear. Soon after, PK returned to the boarding school carrying an unexpected gift from the healer, a chicken that became his unlikely protector. Every time the bullies approached his bed, the chicken would sense them and react, giving PK a brief warning before they could strike. It wasn't much, but it gave him a rare sense of control in a place where he had none. As time passed, World War II stirred up even more tension. The Afrikaner students, united by their hatred of the British, began idolizing Hitler. Their hostility toward PK grew more intense, and soon he became their main target. One day, they overpowered him and handed him over to Brayton, a student whose cruelty rivaled that of any dictator. In a fit of rage, Brayton slapped PK and, in a twisted display of power, killed his chicken. But PK was no longer the same. His fear had been replaced by a burning anger. In that moment, he lashed out, shoving one of the bullies with all his strength. The bully crashed onto a small flag, landing awkwardly and injuring himself. Enraged, Brayton demanded PK's life in retaliation. He ordered that PK be hanged, intending to end the fight in the most savage way possible. Just as the tension reached its breaking point, a teacher stepped in, halting the violence. In the end, Brayton was expelled for his dangerous outburst.
You don't go.
After the boarding school incident, PK was sent to live with his only remaining family, his grandfather, who had just returned from Congo. Not prepared for the challenge of raising a child, PK's grandfather turned to Doc, a German descendant living in the nearby English settlement of Barberton. Doc became PK's mentor, offering quiet wisdom to guide him through life's struggles. Doc taught PK how to play the piano, a skill that provided him with a much-needed escape. He also shared his own tragic past. The Nazis had killed his family. Doc wasn't just a music teacher. He showed PK how to see the world in new ways. Together, they traveled across Africa, teaching PK that nature always held the answers he sought. Life was calm, but that calm was shattered when the British arrested Doc for hiding his German descent. The prison's Afrikaner head saw an opportunity and offered Doc privileges, allowing PK to keep visiting. The lessons didn't stop, and PK's bond with Doc remained strong, even behind bars. One day, PK opened up about his constant frustration. He was always bullied, no matter where he went. Doc understood the weight of his words and arranged for PK to train with an inmate named Gilles.
I will introduce you to someone who will show you how to use your brain to keep from getting beaten up.
Gilles, a man who had spent most of his life in prison, became PK's boxing coach. His first lesson was simple: to use your head first, then your heart.
Now he was my teacher and my friend.
Good punching. That is strong. 1, 2. 1, 2.
After the first lesson, Gilles asked Doc for tobacco in exchange. But Sergeant Borman overheard and, without warning, beat Gilles mercilessly in front of everyone. The blows came fast and hard, but Gilles never flinched, silently promising to endure. PK, watching in silence, made a vow he would get Gilles the tobacco, no matter the cost. As the days went by, PK's boxing lessons pushed him, shaping him both physically and mentally. By the time he reached his early teens, he had earned his spot in the prison's championship. Gilles had trained him well. PK was stronger, faster, and smarter. In the ring, he was a force to be reckoned with, becoming the champion of his category and earning the respect of the black inmates. Unlike most of the white prisoners, PK grew tobacco for the others and treated them with kindness, earning their loyalty and admiration. One day, after receiving a bucket of tobacco, Gilles tried to return to his cell, but fate wasn't on his side. Borman caught him. Gilles threw the bucket away just in time, but Borman wasn't fooled. In a brutal show of dominance, Borman forced Gilles to eat the filth from the tip of his boot, doing it solely for his twisted pleasure.
Your day will come, and it'll be as black as your bloody soul.
Humiliated and crushed, Gilles vowed to PK that one day he would expose Borman's crimes and make him pay for the pain he had caused. Sometime later, news reached the prison that the Allies had arrived in Germany to end the war. Doc was overjoyed, the thought of returning home sparking hope in him. But for PK, it was different. The reality of their inevitable separation hit him hard, leaving him with a deep sense of loss. Soon after, Doc was put in charge of organizing a concert for an important commissioner visiting the prison. PK and Gilles saw an opportunity for mischief. They secretly wrote a song in Afrikaans, a clever mockery of the guards, right under their noses. The day of the concert arrived, and the tension was thick. The head of the prison warned the inmates that any mistakes would result in punishment, a threat looming over them. As the translator, PK spoke the words, urging the inmates to sing with all their heart. When the music began, the black inmates sang joyfully, their eyes fixed on the guards, creating an atmosphere filled with confusion and suspicion. Meanwhile, Gilles was rushing to finish his laundry duty, but Borman intercepted him. The brutal guard beat Gilles, demanding that he explain the meaning of the song. Gilles, bruised but defiant, finally spoke, telling Borman that the song was a declaration, that the guards were afraid and cowardly. He repeated the words over and over, each repetition a small victory. Borman, enraged, slapped Gilles across the face, but the damage was done. The truth had been spoken. PK immediately noticed Gil's absence and rushed to find him. When he finally did, it was too late. Gil was dying. The weak-fading African man barely managed to speak, congratulating PK for uniting the black tribes for the first time in years. His voice, barely audible, gave one final piece of advice. Always follow the head first, then the heart. It was Gil's mantra, a lesson that would stay with PK forever. Fast forward to 1940, right? PK, now a young man, is studying at an English school in Johannesburg. He stands before his classmates and the headmaster, recounting the events that had shaped his life. The headmaster, intrigued, asks about Borman's fate. PK pauses, then simply says that justice was served. A month after Gil's death, Borman was found dead in his cell. But justice wasn't the only thing on PK's mind. He had continued to refine his boxing skills, competing in student championships. One match stood out. PK was on the verge of defeat when, from the stands, a white girl cheered him on, her voice cutting through the tension. Then, from the black spectators, who were barred from the arena, came a chorus of chants. Despite the racial divide, their voices lifted him, giving him the strength to push forward. In the ring, PK unleashed a barrage of punches, each one landing with deadly precision. His opponent staggered, and with one final strike, PK claimed victory. His friends erupted in cheers, celebrating his triumph. But PK wasn't paying attention to the celebration. His eyes scanned the crowd, looking for the girl who had cheered him on. With Maury's help, he found her. Her name was Maria, and she was the daughter of Daniel, a powerful figure in the Afrikaner Party. Despite the challenges ahead, PK's determination was unwavering. That night, he gathered his courage and snuck into Maria's boarding school, climbing the balcony to reach her. Time was tight, but he made a promise. The next day, he would speak to her father and ask for her hand in marriage.
Dr. Marie, mag ek jou dochter Maria Elisabeth sien asseblief?
PK, did I hear you?
PK's journey then led him to a gym, where people of all races trained together. Maury introduced him to Hoppy, the gym owner and boxing coach. Hoppy, impressed by PK's natural talent, saw potential in him and decided to mentor him, shaping him into a future boxing contender. Despite this, PK wasn't ready to give up on Maria. He went to her father's house, hoping to open a conversation, but Daniel was firm. The idea of a liberal Englishman marrying his daughter was unthinkable. Yet Maria, driven by her own desires, made a bold decision. Ignoring her father's objections, she visited PK at the gym, defying everything around her. Soon after, PK was approached by Elias, a boxing agent who had once shared a cell with Gil. Elias had been the one to lead the chants during PK's matches, rallying the crowd with his voice. Now, he introduced PK to Duma, a fierce fighter eager to prove that his people were just as strong as the white men. PK accepted the challenge, and with his friends by his side, he traveled to Alexandra, a poor, mostly black district where the fight would take place. In the ring, PK and Duma exchanged punches, each one a testament to their skill and determination. But by the end of the round, Duma landed a crushing blow, knocking PK to the mat. Shaken but not defeated, PK rose and prepared for the next round. He was determined to find Duma's weakness, but despite his efforts, he was knocked down again. As PK lay on the mat, memories of Dabula Manzi's ritual came flooding back. He remembered the strength it had given him before, the lessons of the elephant, and the mantra Gil had passed on to him. With newfound resolve, PK gathered his strength. When the next round started, he unleashed his signature 8-step punch combination, each blow sharper than the last. Duma couldn't keep up. PK defeated Duma, but there was no celebration. The black South African spectators, who had come to support Duma, stayed silent, their loyalty to him unmistakable. Despite his defeat, Duma, battered but still proud, walked up to PK and extended his hand, calling him the fighter for life in honor of his unbreakable spirit. To PK's surprise, news of his victories in the prison fights had spread quickly among the black community. Gil had shared his story, portraying PK as a legendary figure, one who had united the tribes, a symbol of strength and hope. Soon after, PK returned to the boarding school, eager to see Maria again. When they met, he told her about his fight in Alexandra, his victory over Duma, and the harsh conditions he had witnessed in the poor district. Maria listened closely and then revealed something unexpected. Her beloved black nanny was from Alexandra. She had never realized the place was so impoverished. Before they parted, Maria invited PK to a dance at her school, assuring him she would speak to her father to avoid any trouble. What PK didn't know was that Daniel had spies watching him closely. The next day, PK returned to Alexandra to train the village children with Duma. As they walked through the district, PK was shocked by the sight of a long line of people waiting for the only bathroom available to them. The government had forced them to share one bathroom for every 200 people, a harsh reminder of the deep inequality that ravaged the nation. PK also learned that only 2% of South Africa's black population had access to education, a stark contrast to the privileges he had always taken for granted. In the midst of this harsh reality, Duma made a bold request. He asked PK to help establish a school to teach English to the black community, to prepare them for the struggles ahead. The weight of the request hung heavily in the air, and PK, gripped by fear of the consequences, refused. But Duma wasn't deterred. He reminded PK of the fighter-for-life legend, the symbol he had become, a man capable of uniting tribes. The words stayed with PK, sparking something inside him, though he still hesitated, unsure of the path forward. After traveling through the wilds of South Africa, PK returned with a newfound sense of purpose. He sought out the headmaster and, in secret, requested that black South African students be allowed admission to the school. Though the headmaster agreed to PK's request, there was a price to pay. PK had to turn down Maria's invitation to the upcoming dance. Her hurt was obvious, and the disappointment between them grew, creating an unspoken distance.
Maria, this is important.
All I understand is I'm not going to my senior ball because you want to change the world. That's all I understand.
Maria!
That evening, Maria attended a family dinner where the air was thick with tension. As her family raised a toast to apartheid, Maria remained silent, unable to join in their celebration of hate. Finally, she spoke up. She revealed that she had visited Alexandra and passionately argued that black South Africans deserved better than the hatred they were subjected to. Her words rocked the room. Her father, furious, slapped her across the face. Meanwhile, PK and Maury welcomed Duma and his friends from Alexandra to the English school, a bold act of defiance that felt both thrilling and dangerous. During class, Maria unexpectedly appeared, offering to help with the teaching. Despite the growing rift between them, PK couldn't help but appreciate her willingness to contribute. The next day, PK was called to the headmaster's office. The news hit him like a punch to the gut. The school had received orders from Colonel Botha and his assistant Brayton to stop teaching black South Africans. Botha and Brayton, the same men who had tormented PK in his youth, were now working for Daniel, Maria's father, as spies to intimidate PK and Maury. The next day, the headmaster called PK and Maury to his office with surprising news. Both had been awarded scholarships to Oxford. The chance to study in England was a dream come true, offering a way out from the suffocating oppression of South Africa. But that dream was quickly overshadowed by the storm that was about to hit. Brayton burst into PK's gym, seething with rage. He blamed PK for his expulsion from the boarding school, his hatred boiling over from years of resentment. With soldiers by his side, Brayton and his men beat several boxers and made it clear they were determined to shut down the mixed-race gym, using violence to send a brutal message of power and fear. Shaken by the threats, PK secretly visited Maria, hoping to convince her to join him in England. The scholarship was their chance to escape, to break free from the looming danger in South Africa. Meanwhile, Hoppy, the gym owner, took a stand. He painted a bold mural on the gym's wall, showing a white man and a black South African standing together. It was a direct defiance of the authorities. But soon after, Brayton and his soldiers arrived, throwing everyone out of the gym and setting it ablaze. Hoppy was arrested and dragged away, helpless, as the flames consumed everything. Before Hoppy was taken to prison, he called out to PK, his voice strong and determined, a final plea for him to never stop fighting. His message wasn't just about boxing, it was a call to keep fighting for life, for justice. Inspired by Hoppy's words, PK, with Maury and Maria's help, continued his work teaching black South Africans at a church. The fight was far from over, and PK knew he couldn't walk away from it. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until Colonel Botha and his men raided the church. The air was thick with tension, a confrontation imminent. In the chaos, a punch meant for PK struck Maria instead. The force of the blow killed her instantly, leaving PK devastated. Consumed by grief, PK attended Maria's funeral. As he stood by her grave, Daniel, Maria's father, furious and broken, charged at him with a shovel, ready to strike. But just as the blow was about to land, the sound of singing filled the air. A crowd of black South Africans from Alexandra, the very people PK had taught, gathered to honor Maria. Their unity and reverence stopped Daniel cold. For PK, the tragedy was too much. The revolution he had fought so hard for now felt impossible. The loss of Maria crushed his spirit, and he couldn't bring himself to continue the fight. But later, as PK visited Dumas to tell him about his plan to leave for Oxford, something shifted. Watching the children in Alexandria speak the very language he had taught them, he realized his work wasn't done.
That all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain...
The fight for change, for education, for freedom still burned inside him. He couldn't walk away. The struggle had to go on. Then, one afternoon, the city was thrown into chaos. Military forces stormed the streets, gunning down black residents in their search for PK. PK fought to escape, weaving through the crowd, dodging soldiers. In the midst of the chaos, Dumas was shot in the leg by Brayton. Despite the pain, he refused to stop. The black South Africans, united by their cause, rallied around PK, resisting the soldiers with fierce determination. As the battle raged, Dumas, now recovered, reached Colonel Botha. In a surge of strength, Dumas stabbed Botha with a spear, delivering a brief moment of triumph. Meanwhile, Brayton stood over Elias, preparing to execute him. The air was thick with tension. In the midst of the chaos, PK finally faced Brayton, locking eyes with the man who had tormented him for so long. With sheer force and determination, PK took Brayton down with nothing but his bare hands. But Brayton wasn't finished. In a final act of desperation, he grabbed a pistol from a fallen soldier and aimed it straight at PK. Just as the trigger was about to be pulled, Dumas appeared out of nowhere, cricket bat in hand. With a single, powerful swing, he struck Brayton, killing him instantly. As the violence in Alexandria began to subside, PK and Dumas, battered but unbroken, managed to escape the bloodshed. They made a vow to each other, no matter the cost, they would keep fighting against apartheid, determined to end racial injustice for good. So the moral of the story is, if you're ever stuck in a tough spot, just remember, fear can be defeated, chickens can be heroes, and sometimes a cricket bat is all you need to make things right.